We're back with more from Kyle Kulinski. And Kyle, I think I told you this, but like literally every time that we post something on YouTube, at least one of our commenters says you have to have Kyle Kulinski
That's true.
on. Yeah. So I already wanted you to have you on, just for the record, but also there was a mass clamoring of support for your appearance on the show. So thank you.
Flattered. Appreciate that.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about this whole thing with the squad and the president, and in particular, I believe there's a piece on BuzzFeed talking about how Ilhan Omar's anti-Semitism has become a load-bearing myth in American politics. What's your view of Congresswoman Omar in particular, who has really in particular come in for attacks from the president and from the right?
I mean, she's been smeared more viciously than maybe I've seen anybody. Yeah, it's really wild to see what they're doing. And they're actually putting her in danger, too. And I don't say that lightly, because you have the president of the United States, the most powerful man in the world, going out there and arguing, just flat out saying she's pro-Al-Qaeda. Which is like, are you serious, man? Like, did you really just say that? Do you understand the danger that you're putting her in? Obviously, that's not true. And then furthermore, this is the president that just did a multi-billion-dollar weapons deal with Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia turns right around and funds jihadist rebels on the ground in Yemen and does it in Syria as well. So if anybody is like, in a weird or roundabout way, supporting Al-Qaeda, I got bad news for you, Trump. It would be you. So, but yeah, the stuff about anti-Semitism, I mean, if you look at what she said that they're accusing her of anti-Semitism over, all she said was that AIPAC gives money to politicians, and then politicians do the bidding of AIPAC, which is only 100% factually true. And then people turn around and say, well, yeah, but she singled out Israel, which is also not true, because she said it about Saudi Arabia as well. And when she said it about Saudi Arabia, nobody called her an Islamophobe. So they really are singling her out for some of the most vicious criticism I've ever seen. And the thing about Ilhan that's so great is that as they're viciously smearing her, look at what she's doing. She is, her main issue, as far as I could tell, is really ending these dumb wars. And I find it so ironic that here she is actually fighting on this issue that Trump voters said they cared about when they voted for Trump. Because half the time on the campaign trail, Donald Trump was talking about how we need to stop these dumb wars and rebuild our infrastructure. Along comes Ilhan Omar, one of the first 2 Muslim congresswomen in American history. She's fighting on those issues, and they hate her. So it tells you something about how rational, the view of Ilhan Omar is coming from the right. And Kyle, even on the corporate Democratic side, too, to be fair.
Yeah, Kyle, I think what the main thing that you're getting at is about a difference in why the war should end. So the Trump voter would say the wars need to end so we can focus on here at home. America is still the greatest country on earth. What we hear from AOC and from Ilhan is really America is the most flawed country on earth. We need to remove all of our troops, and then we need to have some sort of national reconciliation with how terrible we are. I'm not saying that this is necessarily true, an accurate representation of their views, but that's how it's perceived. So the perception is that Ilhan Omar does not respect the United States of America and wants to reform and change it, which is scary to people who voted for Trump. Well, do you think that that's a fair concern, or do you understand what I'm getting at here?
I think it is. I understand what you're trying to say, but I think the people that make that argument are so incredibly silly that it's mind-boggling, because here you have a president who ran on make America great again. Again means it ain't that great right now. So Donald Trump can criticize America as vociferously and fiercely as humanly possible, and nobody accuses him of being anti-American. But Ilhan Omar does it, a young Muslim congresswoman, and the argument is she hates America. Well, there's an old quote, I believe it was from one of the founding fathers, I think Thomas Jefferson, and it's dissent is the highest form of patriotism. She's criticizing because she wants to make the country better. She wants to improve it. And the same goes for AOC, same goes for all the Justice Democrats. I mean, look at AOC's first major bill that she teamed up with Bernie Sanders on, stopping usury. I think they capped the interest rate at 12%. That's what they want to do. So as people are viciously smearing her, she's also saying, I'm going to fight for all of the American people and try to make it so that big financial institutions can't rip them off. It really is amazing how Trump has nothing on these people. Nothing. So what does he do? The most unhinged, vile tweets you've ever seen that are insanely bigoted that just accuse them of hating America. There's a reason why the criticism is so vapid and so ridiculous and so non-specific, because he has nothing to say that criticizes them fairly.
I think it's always important to point out that before Congresswoman Omar, sent out the tweet that became controversial and that there was a House censure over and whatever, before any of that happened, there were signs put up by the Republican Party in West Virginia with a picture of her that said that she was proof that we had forgotten about 9/11, okay? Just her showing up as a black woman in a hijab was a trigger to some folks on the right. So I think that's always important to keep in mind. I'm interested, though, to know from a Democratic Party perspective, what do you make of how Nancy Pelosi has handled this whole dynamic? Because Trump didn't get into the mix here until Pelosi started criticizing AOC and Ilhan Omar and the whole squad.
I'm going to let you in on an open secret here. Nancy Pelosi and Democratic leadership are terrified of the Justice Democrats and this new wave of strong, bold, passionate lefties getting into public life. Because they really do represent a fundamental changing of the guard. Because look at everything that they're fighting for. They're fighting for Medicare for all. They're fighting for free college. They're fighting for a living wage. They want to end the wars. They're taking no corporate PAC money, and they took a pledge to take no corporate PAC money. That's the whole point of Justice Democrats, is these are uncorrupted people, so you can trust that they're going to be representatives of the people. Well, all those things I just mentioned are fundamentally the opposite of Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi is a centrist to her core. She's a Washington wheeler and dealer inside and out. She loves those smoke-filled back rooms where they cut deals with Republicans and then they all sip some cocktails and giggle together. She loves that. We're not talking about that with this younger generation. We're not talking about that with the Justice Democrats and these uncorrupted candidates. They are the people who say, no, we have beliefs and we're going to fight for them. And we're not going to back down. And you're not going to get me to, change my view by schmoozing me or whatever, or cutting me a check from a donor. So she realizes, Nancy Pelosi sees the Twitter following of Ilhan Omar and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She sees all the news stories that cover every move they make. And she knows, oh, wow, our time is limited. Our time meaning the old guard, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, and that neoliberal centrist school of Democratic thought.
Well, and of course, she's committed to the system as it is, because that's a system that has given her power. So it makes sense just in terms of thinking about where she derives her personal power from. Kyle, thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it. It's great to have you.
Well said.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Coming up, the 2020 Democrats are dropping the positive campaign messaging and picking up the boxing gloves.
Gabbard versus Harris, Booker versus Biden. We're going to get you up to speed with Team Rising next.